Welcome to Mission Stories for Kids with Uncle Gordon, where you will hear first-hand accounts of answers to prayer and miracles from God. Oh, by the way, I think adults will like this too.
G'day boys and girls, Uncle Gordon here. Lovely to be with you and to be able to share a story with you again. When I was living and working in the Solomon Islands, I had the privilege one time of travelling over by plane initially to the Western Solomons, and then by canoe across to our mission headquarters at Kakundu, and then in a little boat, about 28 foot long, a little timber boat called the Dani. We travelled by boat right around to the island of Choisel, and I had the joy of being part of a whole series of meetings in a number of villages on Choisel Island. We had finished all those meetings and we're heading back along the northern coast of Choisel, back towards the big pathway, the riverway that would go right through splitting the Choisel Island, a big passage. And it was nightfall by the time we got to that passage, and we began travelling through this long passage, and all of a sudden one of the men on the boat, one of the crew said, "Oh, the boat's leaking." And I said, "Oh, what's the trouble?" He said, "Oh, it's coming up through the keel." The keel was made of one huge, big, thick piece of timber. A new keel was waiting back at Kakundu at the mission headquarters to put in, and new timbers to replace those that were rotting. The old boat was needing a full repair, and this was starting to prove that the boat was probably a bit too late to be repaired. It should have been done before this trip. And they said, "Oh no, the keel's leaking." And so I went to have a little look to see what was going on, and water was starting to spurt through parts of the floor from the keel. And quickly one of the men turned on the little pump to pump water out, but the water was coming in quicker than they could pump it out. And so each of us grabbed a little bit of caulking compound. That's a little compound we would press together and press in where the water was coming out to try and fill the hole so that it would quickly stick through the water. It'd stick to the timber and stop the water coming out. But every time we would press the caulking compound into a hole that was made by the water, then it would spurt out somewhere else. And the water just kept coming in and coming in. And the captain eventually said, "I think we might have to beach the boat." He said, "We'll have to run the boat up onto the shore and then let it lie over on its side. We'll have to get out and we'll have to wait till daylight and see what we can do to fix it in daylight. It's a bit too hard just with torches here at night, and we'll just leave it on the side of the bank until we can fix it." So then I said, "Well, is it good to get out of the water? Is it safe, the water's here?" And I picked up a big torch I carried with me and shone that torch along the river bank. And everywhere I shone the torch, there were reflections back at us. You know, those reflections were the eyes of crocodiles that were lying on the banks on both sides of the river all the way through this passage. And I said, "I'm not really thrilled about the idea of getting out of the boat into the water with all those crocodiles there." And some of those crocodiles were very, very big. You know, we've had some in Australia that have grown to 20 feet plus more. And many of these were that big, and some of them even bigger again. Big saltwater crocs, as dangerous as any of our saltwater crocs in Australia. And they said, "Yeah, well, we don't really want to get out there. We can see all those crocs now as they're reflecting off your light. What do we do?" And I said, "I think we need to talk to God about this." And so we just knelt there on the floor and paused in trying to fill the little holes for a few moments and said, "Lord, you know, there's waters coming in quicker than we can stop the holes that are being created by the water being dragged into this rotten keel. Please help us to be able to stop this water so we can continue our journey safely." Then we finished our little prayer, and all were working flat out just for another 5 minutes, pushing this caulking compound into every place where the water spurted out, and then we waited. And after a few moments, it spurted out somewhere else, and we quickly filled that hole. We waited for a few moments. The water spurted out another spot. We filled that hole quickly. Then we waited, and there was no more spurting of water. And so the captain got the engines going again, turned the boat around, and we headed back along the passage. And all the way home, we had no more water coming in. Yes, he did keep the little pump going to push the water out in case there was some other coming in through other parts of the rotten old hull that we had on the boat. But we made it home safely that night. And we are so grateful to God for being there to give us the patience and the endurance to keep pushing that caulking compound into the holes, but then eventually to stop that water coming in at all. We didn't want to face Crocs that night, and so we were so grateful to God for intervening for us again. Thank you for listening, boys and girls. God is there for you at all times, and sometimes then when we're doing things for Him or helping somebody, sometimes it can be hard work. But He still wants to be there, a part of that, doing anything, helping you with anything you're wanting to do, to help somebody in need, to support somebody. God wants to be a part of that. He's motivated you to want to do it, and so He wants to give you strength and capacity to do something special for somebody else. So thank you for listening, and God bless you, boys and girls.
You've been listening to Mission Stories for Kids with Uncle Gordon, a production of 3ABN Australia Radio.